because the one thing about all of those fundamentals that I just provided is almost all of them are lead indicators for a potential collapse in a real estate market. So now that you know about market cycles and you know about how to identify good buying opportunities, the question is, how do you prepare for a coming real estate collapse? Well, it seems that time may finally be running out for the real estate market. And that means that many people could potentially make a fortune if they are prepared to take advantage of the coming real estate collapse. I mean, if there's one surefire way to make money, it's by investing in real estate, right?
It's a sure thing.
But the question is, how do you prepare in order to take advantage of a real estate collapse? And furthermore, how do you identify when the buying opportunities actually exist? Well, that's what we're going to discuss in this video. How to identify where you're at in the market cycle, how to identify buying opportunities, and how to make sure that you aren't catching a falling knife. But before I get into it, if you want to thrive financially, this is the place for you. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and hit that like button so more people like you can see this video. Okay, so let's discuss how to identify a collapsing real estate market and how to take advantage of the buying opportunities that come with it. And the first thing that you need to understand about knowing when to buy is that forecasting is a dangerous business. As one economist put it, he who lives in a crystal ball will die by eating a lot of broken glass. So trying to forecast exactly when the top or the bottom of the market is a fool's errand. And a strategy that buys and holds for the long term will always beat out a strategy that tries to time the market.
Bull market, bear market, you name the market, I'm there.
Because even though we can try to understand the economic cycles of the real estate market, which I'll get to in a second, economic forces are completely random and they can throw out of whack what would otherwise be a normal market cycle. And while it might seem possible to identify exactly where we are at any given time in that market cycle, the reality is that we can't. So what's more important is that we're able to be prepared for buying opportunities. And when those buying opportunities present themselves, we're able to identify whether they are in fact good buying opportunities for that point in the market cycle. And I'll show you both how to prepare for buying opportunities and how to verify that they are indeed opportunities at the end of this video. But first, let's talk about what a typical real estate market cycle looks like. One of the most famous explanations of the real estate market cycle comes from Glenn R. Muller. And in his explanation of real estate market cycles, he identifies 4 key quadrants. The first is the recovery phase, or the last depending on how you look at it. The second is the expansion phase. The third is hypersupply, and the fourth is recession. And in this particular explanation of market cycles, he looks at occupancy versus new construction. The recovery phase is marked by declining vacancies and not much new construction. As vacancy rates get lower and lower and supply of housing goes down, property values start to increase and developers see opportunity to build new properties. And in phase 2, which is expansion, vacancy rates continue to go down, but new construction starts to come online. And it could be argued that this is the exact phase that we are in right now. Now in stage 3, we find ourselves in the hypersupply stage. This is typically identified by increasing vacancy rates as more and more properties come online and there becomes more options to choose from for renters. And in phase 4, which is recession, vacancy rates continue to go even higher and higher as more and more completions start to come to market. Now, there's some important things to note about these market cycles. They can happen both from a macroeconomic perspective, which is nationally, and a microeconomic perspective, which is locally. And when it comes to taking advantage of real estate collapses, it's important to look at your local market as opposed to what's going on nationally. Because even though there can be big national collapses like what happened in the US in 2008, those large-scale types of corrections are atypical. However, on a smaller local scale, it's not uncommon for several cities in the same state or province to be at different points in the market cycle. It's also important to note that these market cycles on average take 18 years from start to finish and can take as long as 48 years to complete, which means at any given time, it's really hard to determine exactly where you are in these cycles. But that being said, there's also shorter term cycles that also take place in any given real estate market. And what that means is that no matter where you are in a long-term real estate cycle, there will be buying opportunities at every stage. And the easiest way to identify those buying opportunities is by identifying the swings between a buyer's and a seller's market, with the buyer's market being the opportunity to buy properties at a discounted price. Now, that being said, you don't want to just buy real estate because it's a buyer's market. The fundamentals also have to make sense. And this is where people make big mistakes. They throw out the fundamentals and invest in real estate just because they think the values are going to go up.
Stupid.
And I cannot emphasize enough that investing for appreciation is not investing at all. That is speculating. Investing in real estate is all about earning long-term cash flow.
What kind of positive cash flow?
And in order to ensure that you're going to earn long-term cash flow without bankrupting yourself, you have to make sure that you only buy when it makes sense. So there's 7 things we look at from a basic fundamental standpoint. The first is obviously the buyer's market piece. The second is that we're only looking to buy in markets where migration is positive, because if migration is negative and people are leaving the city, that could be a sign of even bigger problems. In addition to migration being positive, we also want to make sure that employment is positive or steady. We don't want to be buying in markets where people are losing their jobs en masse, especially in a market that has a cyclical economy that is based on only 1 or 2 industries. Then we want to look at vacancy rates. Obviously, we want to make sure that we're buying in markets where vacancy rates are declining or holding steady, because as we discussed previously when we talked about market cycles, increasing vacancy rates are an indication that the market is turning for the negative. Now, we also want to make sure that rents are steady or rising, because steady or rising rents are an indicator that there isn't oversupply in the market. Then we also want to make sure that housing is still affordable in the market that we're looking at, because in a market where housing costs are more than 45% of the average income, it becomes virtually unsustainable for people to be able to own a home or continue to rent it. And that is typically when migration turns and you start to see it go negative, when it gets too expensive to live in a particular market. And then last but not least, we want to be able to make sure that when we buy a property with 20 to 25% down, that it is break even or better. And that's not just on the mortgage, but on all the carrying costs, including any taxes, an allowance for vacancy rates, and an allowance for any maintenance that could have to happen in the next 10 to 15 years. And if you find yourself in a buyer's market and all of those fundamentals are in line, then it may very well be a good time to buy in that particular market. But if any of those fundamentals are not in line, then you need to do more digging to figure out why and see if there's a bigger problem about to come down the road. Because the one thing about all of those fundamentals that I just provided is almost all of them are lead indicators for a potential collapse in a real estate market. So now that you know about market cycles and you know about how to identify good buying opportunities, the question is, how do you prepare for a coming real estate collapse? Well, the first thing is, if those fundamentals don't make sense, you wait.
Do not pass go, do not collect $200.
And you be patient, because the difference between a great real estate investor and somebody who loses their shirt is their patience. So instead, you start saving money and investing money in other assets, things like stocks and bonds. In fact, in Kaiser's fundamental value model, he suggests that anytime that it does not make sense to invest in stocks, you invest in real estate and vice versa, rebalancing your portfolio continually. And the goal here is to build as big of a war chest as humanly possible while you wait for the market fundamentals to line up. And at the same time, you should be looking at lowering debt as much as possible so that you can optimize for the amount of mortgages that you can get in order to buy new properties. And at the same time, you want to work on building your creditworthiness. Did I just let the cat out of the bag on what one of the next videos is going to be? Oh well, ignore that, just hit the subscribe button. And if you can do those 3 things, build your war chest, reduce your debt, and make sure your creditworthiness is spot on, when the market does collapse and there does come some buying opportunities, you will be prepared to take advantage of them. Oh, and if you want to know the ideal order to invest your money in real estate, make sure you check out this video right here.